Welcome to the Finished Business Podcast. I'm your host. Do we have our Twitter handles down there today?
No, not today.
Well, my Twitter handle is at NKMCQUAIN. We have a special guest. Oh, first, Brad, co-host.
Yeah, that's me. Lance the vegan isn't with us today because he's not feeling so well.
I don't like vegans. I'm just kidding. I like you, Lance.
He's not actually vegan. I mean, he is vegan. Follow him at Lance the Vegan.
So the new voice that you just heard, for those who aren't watching, is our guest.
Aaron Grubb.
Introduce yourself for a second.
I'm Aaron Grubb, photographer, videographer, website person. And at Twitter, I'm at Aaron M. Grubb. I can't remember because I don't use Twitter very much. But if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Grubb Aaron.
With two B's.
Yeah, with two B's. AARON. No, sorry. At GRUBBAARON.
Two A's and two B's.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
That is crazy.
Because of the Twitter and the Instagram are backwards.
Oh, yeah. They're like opposites.
Yeah, and they're both at.
Why didn't you keep it the same?
Because it wasn't available. So I got aarongrubb at gmail.com. I got lucky with that one. Then I got aarongrubb.com, and that was really lucky because other people want that. But with Twitter and Instagram, I was a little bit late to the party, so I missed out.
So have you done podcasts before?
I have not.
First time.
Yeah.
But you listen to our podcast, right?
I've listened to your podcast and like a lot of other podcasts. But since I like you guys, I listen to your podcast too.
Oh, thanks.
Because there's other wall podcasts that I don't listen to.
Wait, there's other Walla podcasts?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's even called. It's like specifically Walla. I can't remember what it is. But I do listen to Nick Page's landscape photography podcast.
Oh,
so
okay.
He's not paying me to say that.
So at the place that your wife used to live at, that old nursing home,
Yes.
there was a studio.
Yeah. Oh, that's the...
It was a podcast studio or a radio show studio.
Yeah, what are they called?
So-
Walla Wine something?
Oh, there's a wine podcast too, isn't there?
I believe so. I mean, we're kind of wine people.
Yeah. I can't remember what any of them are called.
Well, do you have current events for today?
Yeah. So I'm actually kind of feeling intimidated a little bit because our guest seems to have a fair knowledge of the internet. So I might I'll just start with Papa John's. Do you guys know what's going on with that?
No idea.
No. I thought you were going to talk about Trump and Putin, but...
Oh, that's Helsinki, and
that's what I said earlier, and you were like, "What's that?"
I don't like to devote very much brain power to Trump anymore. Just
Yeah.
it's very consuming.
All right, but Papa John's.
Papa John's. So there was some controversy. He used the N-word in a conference call,
Really?
and it all happened really quickly within the same day. Got fired, lost his. He had what's it called, not a CEO, but board membership. He lost that.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking his picture and his name off of their logo.
So the guy that is like Papa John.
The Papa John's.
Okay.
And so Papa John's sponsors a stadium. I think it's a football stadium somewhere on the East Coast. So they're taking their name off of that. So really, really, really serious ramifications for this guy.
So, I mean, was he being racist and calling somebody the N-word, or was he like, "Yo, what up?" And with an A instead of a hard ER?
So it was a conference call with the company.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, apparently there is.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
So it was in a conference call about diversity training is when it happened.
It sounds like The Office all over again.
The conversation was about them wanting to have Kanye West as a sponsor in a commercial.
Uh-huh.
And Papa John was like, "No, he says the N-word too much. We don't want him."
Oh.
But he actually said the N-word?
And I guess they made him say the N-word, the actual N-word.
So he didn't say
He said
Kanye
it.
West says the N-word too much. He actually used the N-word. Kanye West says
Yeah.
so much, right?
Oh, boy.
Well, in that context, I don't see anything wrong with that, honestly.
No.
It wasn't public. It wasn't a tweet. It was
Well, and if you're just quoting somebody,
Well, and in that context, he's not calling anybody the N-word.
No.
He's just saying
No.
this person uses the N-word
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah. So I guess why I wanted to bring this up is because when I'm going to talk about Trump for a second. When Trump was first elected, everyone was pretty happy that like a lot of political correctness kind of is out the window now. We're able to like say things that we wouldn't be allowed to say with Obama administration to like someone's face. You know, a lot of like left and rightists sort of thing. So
Okay.
now it seems like for a while the male gender was under attack with sexual harassment claims, like the Harry Weinstein thing.
The whole Me Too thing.
Yeah, all that, and
Uh-huh.
I'm not trying to take any like that stuff is bad, but the fact that it's getting public so quickly and people's opinions that people are losing their jobs over it, that's what I'm sort of like.
You're concerned that maybe people are being wrongly accused?
Yeah, and with how quickly the internet is with our phones now, we can instantly post our opinion about, oh, Papa John's, you POS, and then our friends will join in, and instantly his name
Without context.
spirals down. Yeah, and
Right.
it's just kind of crazy to me.
That's kind of like one of your favorite guys, Elon Musk, has been getting a lot of flack lately because he called one of the divers in that, because the
Thai soccer team,
the Thai soccer team that got stuck in the cave.
6 miles of caves.
Yeah, one of the divers said, because he helped promote to create this submarine to help save the children.
Built out of
Oh, right.
rocket parts.
Right,
Oh,
right,
that's
and
pretty cool.
one of the divers called it
The
called
main-
it a PR move, and Elon Musk got offended and called the guy a pedophile. And it's like, and now he's like apologizing for it. And I don't know. I mean, that was.
Why did he call him a pedophile?
I think his feelings were just hurt. I think he was just kind of butthurt.
So he called him a pedophile?
I know. I mean, he could have just called him a jerk, you know. Hey man, that wasn't nice, you jerk. You know. But instead, he's like, oh, you're
That was really
touching the children. You're a pedophile. Or
that
something.
was strange for him to do that. For
Yeah.
Elon Musk to like jump out and be
That's
not.
kind of
It's like shots fired.
uncharacteristic.
Yeah. Well, there is kind of a thing in Thailand about like prostitution and males that look like females prostituting.
Girly boys.
So there's girl boys, and that's exactly what they're called. So there's a lot of stuff in regards to Thailand that's touchy subjects, and so
So
maybe that's
where it came from.
yeah, because that diver, he was the head supervisor dude, like in charge of all the other divers, the head diver guy that he
see.
called a pedophile, and in some reading I've done about it, he said he likes Thailand and he lives there. He's an American, but he lives in Thailand because he likes it. So that's probably where Elon Musk was coming from, with the stigma attached to Thailand.
Still, I don't think that was an appropriate
I agree.
response.
Yeah,
I
probably not.
agree.
All right. Well, moving on to our topic then, the battle of the currents.
I didn't have time to brush up on this.
All right.
But I have a decent memory, so I have some little tidbits maybe I could share, but that's about it.
So we're talking about AC versus DC.
Yeah, which is for those of you who thought we were talking about ocean currents, we're talking about
events.
electricity, alternating current versus direct current, which is basically Thomas Edison versus Nikola Tesla, because Nikola Tesla invented the AC, the alternating current, and at the time, Edison had I don't know if he had invented DC, but he had definitely promoted it, and it was widely used everywhere. And they had these huge freaking cables because, I mean,
It's like darkening the sky, I think it was described. You know, there's so many cables, like everywhere, and they had to have a repeater station like every like mile or something, just to keep the current going. So do you want me to just kind of describe
Go for
why it do? Okay, so
yeah.
DC goes one direction, so you're like pushing the electrons like all the way around the loop, no matter like how far you're going. You just have to keep pushing them. So AC kind of pulls it like this and just goes like back and forth, so that like it doesn't take as much like push, right? So you can have smaller wires, fewer wires, and you have fewer power stations that you need to do anything. I probably should add before we get into anything else that to make that happen, they have to have the step-up transformer to get like, so that's why the power lines are like ultra high voltage, because they step it up, and then when they get back to wherever, they step it back down to like regular voltage. That's as far as my knowledge goes.
120 volts
Well,
for your
I'm
house,
not
or
sure.
220.
It's probably. Yeah, I think that's probably just go straight in.
So power lines are AC.
Yeah,
and
yeah. So
AC
everything
Now
that
they are.
powers like anything on a big scale is AC, and so then your like the transformer like that's in your power supply in your computer would convert it to DC.
Correct. So just to be clear, AC is Nikola Tesla, and DC is. Because if we're battling, if there's a
yes,
We
to
gotta-
be clear,
Yeah.
I don't believe that Nikola Tesla it was all his idea. I think it was being discussed, and in some circles it was like, it's not even possible. Like, let's just stop talking about it.
Well-
but it was around, and so he made it happen, kind of.
wasn't it his thing was that AC is everywhere, that the energy is everywhere, and that was his shtick almost. It kind of made it free, and so
That's I think there's two separate things.
Yeah,
I think it was like energy is everywhere, but like AC is the way he's delivering it. But
Oh.
like that's where his wireless energy stuff comes in. Is like you can like just gather it. But I think he was talking about like the energy that's coming from space and stuff like that when he was talking about that.
yeah, I
right?
think he calls that ether energy or
Okay,
something like that.
something
And
like
it
that.
was that's like when he was I mean, I guess this is kind of the controversy around Nikola Tesla, but when he was building he built these giant towers.
Wardenclyffe.
Yeah, they were funded by J.P. Morgan.
Wasn't that going to be like the transmitter of the energy though?
right.
Right.
Yes.
And he was able to light up a light bulb like a mile away or something. Or
that was in Boulder, Colorado, I think.
was it?
So
Yeah.
like he was experimenting. So if you saw The Illusionist, no, is that the one?
I know what
there
you're
was two
talking about.
movies, and I can't remember which one's which.
There's The
but it was the one
Illusionist and
with,
The Prestige.
it was
Hugh
David
Jackman.
Bowie. When David Bowie played Nikola Tesla, I believe. I
David
believe
Bowie.
that was the one where they actually go to Boulder, Colorado, and he's putting light bulbs on the ground.
Okay,
and they
I'm
light up.
thinking of a completely different set of movies then. Sorry,
I can't remember which one it is.
I don't
but
think I've
there's
seen
two
that.
movies. Isn't it with Hugh Jackman?
Hugh Jackman is
The Prestige.
The Prestige.
Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. I think The Illusionist was with Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
See, I'm all
because
twisted around.
yeah, Hugh Jackman was the one where he's trying to figure out how to do the teleporting trick.
Yes, and I believe that is when David Bowie is Nikola Tesla.
Oh,
You didn't realize
really?
it,
I
did
didn't
you?
real It was
Yeah.
David Bowie.
It doesn't look like him because he has a mustache and his hair
I'm
is all
fact
weird
checking
and-
you
Yeah.
right now.
Okay, do it.
I have pretty good memory.
Do
Let's see if
No.
let's see if my kids haven't ruined it.
The Prestige.
It's The Prestige.
Mhm.
Okay.
And who plays Nikola Tesla?
Is it David Bowie?
Yes, Yep.
Oh wow.
indeed.
Oh, I didn't know. I'm gonna have to
Michael
rewatch
Caine.
that movie. I like that movie.
My cocaine. Did you know if you just say my cocaine, you're actually it's like my yeah.
My
It's like you're saying,
cocaine.
like Michael Caine the way he says his name.
But you have to say it like
My cocaine.
my cocaine.
My cocaine. I'm full of ridiculous, nonsensical things like that. So where were we?
So what side are we on with which is better? Do we have a
Oh,
consensus between the three of us?
Well, when you're running small things, DC is better. When
Right.
you're like giving like a large area electricity, like DC sucks.
Okay.
Because it costs a whole lot more because your
like Brad
cables
was
have to be
saying,
bigger.
The cables are like this big, and there's tons of them, and they have to be There has to be a repeater station every like mile.
Mhm.
It's just like
Costs way
insane.
more.
So like with our current infrastructure, we would be like out of copper first of all, and World War II would have been like they would have been really suffering because like they stopped making copper pennies because they needed copper for electronics and whatever
Mhm.
for war. So if we had, I mean, they probably would have been dismantling our power just to get those huge. Because I mean, you think those
To
are going for
reclaim
miles,
the
right?
copper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like without those
Oh,
smaller
man.
wires, yeah. I just thought of that. I never didn't really make the connection before, but
Wow.
So I come from Eastern Oregon, where there's a large meth problem, and a lot of times they will steal cables from the ground, power lines. So could you imagine if we did use big, huge cables like that?
They just cut like a little chunk out of it.
Yeah,
yeah, we just need to take a foot. We're good.
as much as you can carry.
This is like good enough for a lifetime here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Like this laptop runs on DC. That's why you see the power brick that it's plugged into, because the electricity that comes out of the wall is AC.
Correct. I have a.
So show them the transformer.
I did some
This guy
research.
here,
So that converts it to DC.
that
Right.
converts AC to DC.
It also converts the 122, like probably 12 volts or something.
Okay.
Probably, I think there's probably a 12 and a 5 volt rail inside the laptop.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. So what about? So we have a lot of dams near us, hydroelectric power,
Mhm.
and most of that gets shipped. Not shipped. I'm sorry. This day and age with Amazon and stuff.
Amazon just delivers electricity.
You can order it. I'd like 10 kilowatts, please.
Yeah.
That's
Would you like to
hilarious.
subscribe and save? No.
Prime membership. So most of it gets sent on power lines to California, where they don't have a lot of hydroelectric power, which most of these dams were put in back before wind generated power and solar power. But isn't there like a large vulnerability with our power grid? For instance, the other day, last week, the power went out almost all of town for the whole day. It was a business day. It was like a Friday, I think.
It was a Thursday, because
Thursday.
we didn't have power for half the day at the shop.
Yeah, and it turns out a squirrel got messed up in
Yeah.
a transformer.
You'd think it wouldn't be that easy this day and age, but
Well, but I'm wondering how truthful that account is, because it was this part of town lost power, so I didn't have power at my house, didn't have power at the shop.
They tried to fix it.
Yeah, well, no,
and
and they
swapped the
did.
power around.
Right. Well, they fixed it, and we got power back at like 11:30, and then maybe half an hour later, downtown was without power. So it kind of flip flopped, and so I wonder. And then they said that over here it was a squirrel, and over there it was something else. But I'm
At the
almost
same
Two
time?
separate
Yeah.
occasions.
right. But I'm almost wondering if they screwed up when they fixed the power here. I mean, it's possible it was a squirrel
it was
over
two
here.
squirrels.
They coordinated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe there was a third and it didn't work
A
out.
lemur escaped.
They were Islamic
From a
squirrels.
zoo.
Oh my gosh! No.
Islamic
They were like, jihad.
Yeah. It's like
No.
it's a conspiracy theory. All squirrels are. Islam is converting squirrels, and they're like trying
Taking-
to destroy our power grid.
The backbone of America taking us down.
Yeah.
Sounds legit.
It's hilarious. Yeah, so I see those. I grew up going to Portland all the time and just taking Highway 84, I-84, and a lot of large power lines come from the McNary Dam that's right on the Columbia River, and I always wondered, like, if I could shoot it with a gun, if I was good aim, if I could shoot it and like ruin a city's power. You know, like evil maniacal thought, like
Sure.
could I kill the power for like half of Oregon right now?
I feel like
Maybe they had a 50 caliber Barrett.
well, but even then, I feel like there's a lot of redundancies in place at dams and that sort of thing. I think
Yeah,
you might be able to
probably.
take out part of it, but I don't think you would take out electricity
Yeah.
for
Probably
town.
wouldn't be that easy.
yeah.
So, but we are vulnerable though with the electricity, especially
Yeah.
to-
Sure.
Now, if you were to brainwash a few squirrels, you might be able to take down the entire dam.
Those power lines are big though, like cougars or mountain lions,
You could just feed the squirrels steroids.
steroids.
Yeah. And they get roid rage and chew through the cables.
I'll think about it.
It's called religious fervor, Brad.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, so I don't actually know, but I would assume that the power generated by those dams is probably DC and then converted to AC.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I don't actually know, but it makes sense because all of those kind of things are like DC.
Right. Well,
Or dynamos.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what they used to call them. Other like
They're just like huge.
generators.
Yeah.
I don't remember what they're called. My dad is an engineer. He would know. I can't remember.
I've taken a tour of McNary Dam actually, and
Yeah.
it's super cool. There are these huge turbines, and they run
True,
these
yeah.
huge shafts that are like, I don't know, they're massive, and then they have all these. They look like generators.
I mean, basically, they are generators. I just think there's a better name that I'm not thinking of right now.
Sure.
President Eisenhower came to dedicate the McNary Dam.
Really? Oh.
And he stayed in Walla Walla. Excuse
The
me.
Marcus
in
Whitman,
Marcus
right?
Oh
Whitman.
yeah. Okay. I think I've heard of that.
I've seen a picture of him at the Marcus Whitman.
Yeah,
I think at the Marcus Whitman.
Right.
there's a room there, the Eisenhower Suite, modeled
Yeah.
after the room he stayed in.
Really?
I think I might have
Yeah,
seen
I
that.
just saw a picture of that today at our employee meeting.
Have you been in the room?
Yeah, it's
Does it just look like all the other rooms?
it does, but there's some literature about Eisenhower in there, and there's some plaques on the wall that say like commemorative things.
That's cool.
So, what was the controversy surrounding Nikola Tesla back in the day?
Well, like initially there was no controversy, except for AC versus DC. It was when he was older. Well, okay. Halfway through, I think he created some controversy because he actually had some really good ideas that were before his time. But
It's still
I think-
before our time,
yeah,
I would say.
yeah. Well, I mean, some of them, yeah. But like he envisioned like smartphones and the internet and stuff like that, like transferring pictures
And radio.
and stuff over. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay. So this is the problem. He needed like a business manager or something because he had some amazing ideas. He thought of like X-rays, but Röntgen got the credit. He got the Nobel Prize or whatever. Like, okay, so this is I'm really good at tangents. I'm really sorry, but
Do it.
That's what this podcast
Okay.
is about, man.
so he was really good friends with Mark Twain, and like I heard somebody talking about this, and they were really amused because him and Mark Twain would be like running around his lab like early in the morning, like late at night, just like X-raying themselves, like let's X-ray my face, like whoa, that's so cool. And then like my hand, my foot, like just like crazy stuff. And then Röntgen gets the Nobel Prize, right? Like, but see, he just was not. He didn't need recognition. He didn't need like, what do you call it when you get
Adoration.
something Asian.
Well, he definitely was not a businessman.
yeah, he was a terrible businessman.
He was out for humanity.
Yeah, and he could have been real. I mean, he was rich at some points in his life, but at one point he actually ripped up royalty, paperwork, whatever that is. I don't remember what it was. to keep a business afloat.
His citizenship?
No, so there's this company that gave him a bunch of royalties, like every every dollar made you get a certain amount. But he knew
didn't care.
that business was in trouble, so he just ripped him up and was like,
Wow.
this is cool. I want you guys to succeed. So
Yeah.
and that's kind of why he ended up dying alone and penniless, because he was just not very good with money. But
And this is a little conspiracy theory for Mr. Nick over here. And the government confiscated most of his research after he died. And nobody has seen it since.
Interesting.
Like, legit, that happened.
I doubt you could even file for Freedom of Information Act.
Do you think like
Probably
the
not.
Department of Energy has it and is experimenting with it?
I doubt it, because otherwise things would work better by now.
It's
But
the
yeah.
government though, so
But he had some really great ideas, like the towers he was building in
Wardenclyffe.
Right. J.P. Morgan was funding that, and then once he figured
thought
out,
he could make money off it. Yeah.
right, once he figured out that he couldn't meter it, and that everybody would get power.
I think Nikola Tesla was being misleading a little bit, because he knew while he was building it that he was trying to give free energy to people. And
Right.
J.P. Morgan was trying to make money, so if you're giving it away, then he's making absolutely nothing for this huge loan, basically, that he's giving Nikola Tesla. So he was probably pretty angry, I would say.
Right. Yeah, and he lost funding because J.P. Morgan figured it out, and then they had to disassemble the whole thing.
It was never finished.
Yeah.
I think it was actually like brought down with explosives like pretty quickly.
That sounds spectacular.
Yeah, it would have been cool to see. Do you want to go back and give Nikola Tesla funding? No, I just want to watch the tower fall. That'd be cool.
have you guys seen Future Man
That sounds
No.
really familiar.
on Hulu? It's a Hulu original.
Oh,
Is it a show?
It's a
is
show.
that Josh Hutcherson or whatever?
Yep.
Hutcherson?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's produced by Seth Rogen and Ari Shafir.
Right. I think I watched part of an episode, but my wife doesn't like profanity
Oh, wow.
well, I mean,
Oh.
she can tolerate a bit, but I think it was past the threshold for her.
It's a sci-fi
Yes.
about time travel. It's hilarious. At least I think it's hilarious. Just super good, super good. It's the platform is time travel, and so they're allowed to make jokes about a lot of things. And
Is he playing like a video game at the beginning?
uh-huh.
Is it kind of like Last Starfighter, where he's playing the video game and it's kind of like a test or something,
Yep.
and they're like recruits him? Yeah.
Dude, that
Is it Zur? And
I haven't
Codename
seen
Armada?
I haven't seen that
Nobody's
movie in
gonna
a
get
long
that.
time.
Yeah, except for Brad.
Yeah, no, dude, I had that on VHS.
I have the 25th anniversary edition DVD.
They actually made one.
I'll bring it over.
No.
Okay, okay.
No, seriously, that was like one of the first movies that had real CGI. They actually pioneered some or they engineered some like stuff that did not exist and it would take them like forever just to render a frame.
Mm-hmm.
And they like at one point, I think one of their computers just burnt out, and they're like, "Crap!" Like,
Mm-hmm. Have you seen that, dude? I think is that late '80s
What's the movie
or
called?
is it early
It's-
'90s?
I think it's early '80s.
Early '80s.
I think so.
Really? That makes it way
Early-
more impressive.
Early to mid.
I feel
I
like
can't
it was
remember.
like '86
Hold on,
or '87.
That's why I brought the iPad.
All right.
Fact check.
Yeah. That. Oh man, I didn't think anybody else knew about that movie.
I grew up with it, watching it over and over again.
All right, it was.
What
I-
do? We die. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Hey, we could put this all day long.
Oh man. Yeah.
Just off on a tangent.
Yeah, see, that's my
Yeah.
superpower.
Anyway, but the okay,
Tangents.
so the AC versus DC. DC was the accepted way to transport electricity
Because
across.
of money.
84, really? Holy crap!
Yeah, a year after Last Jedi. I mean, not the Last Jedi. The
Return of the
Jedi.
Jedi.
Thank you. I'm all twisted around. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
So it was
pretty
about
impressive.
That
so
is.
It was about the money. In the end,
Well-
capitalism.
Everything's about the money.
I mean,
It is.
kind of.
It's
So
the worst.
AC was a better way to transport electricity around town and around the nation and stuff. But DC was the accepted way to do it. And Nikola Tesla was kind of pushing this idea, and Edison was like, "No, I'm making a ton of money, with this." And
Side note:
yeah,
he tried to discredit AC by telling everybody how dangerous it was. Have you heard of this?
electrocuting an elephant.
Yeah, electrocuted an elephant, electrocuted like dogs and stuff like that publicly, so people be afraid of it. They actually ended up doing the first like human electrocution, like putting somebody to death with it. But except they didn't. Have you ever watched The Green Mile?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. You know where like Percy, the absolute like awful, demented kid that's in there that should not be working there. He I don't know how to describe him. He's like he's the one person that shouldn't be working there. Everybody else is kind of good-hearted and,
Yeah.
and whatnot. Okay. So when they're going to was it John Coffey? I don't know if it was when they were going to electrocute him or if it was the French guy. I don't remember. It's been a long time. But remember, they're supposed to get the sponge wet. That's like his only job is to get the sponge
And
wet.
he didn't.
And he didn't do it on purpose to see what would happen. And it takes way too long to kill him because the electricity is not being
Yeah, it's like
conducted through
burning.
him.
Does it
yeah,
burn him?
it like burns him terribly. I
Yeah.
think it was the French guy.
The large black guy was the
That's
one.
John Coffey.
John Coffey.
Mhm.
That's where it happened.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes it even more terrible. The French guy was great and everything, but John Coffey,
That was
like to drink, but
that
not
movie
felt the same.
affects you.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But okay, so that's exactly what happened when they
With the
electrocuted with the person. The first electrocution, like it took a long time. It smelled horrible, and people were just horrified. And he did that on purpose. I mean, I don't know if he knew better, like he needed some sort of conduction. I'm not saying like he intentionally left out something technical like that. I'm just saying like he did it on purpose to horrify people, to try to prevent it from being used because he's making money on DC.
Shock factor.
Oh,
Oh, I didn't even mean to do that.
That's an
Wow.
absolutely terrible pun. Oh my god.
lightning fast reflexes.
Oh, man.
Okay, I'll stop.
He didn't die lightning fast.
Yeah, that's really bad. Anyway,
So he got shut down by the government because they wanted to make money, and so that's why we. That's
What?
Nikola Tesla.
Well,
Nikola
actually-
Tesla got shut down by a private investor.
Well, on Wardenclyffe. But so there were bids to light the World's Fair. I don't remember what year it was. And Edison, I'm just guessing Edison had a bid in, but Tesla underbid him, obviously, because he got it. And he used AC, probably from the nearby dam. I'm just guessing. So what he did, since he didn't have some great patented light bulbs to use, is he took Edison's design and he like reworked it just enough so it would bypass he wouldn't like be using his patent. So instead of like I'm not sure how it worked. I don't know if it was a screw thing. I don't remember how it worked.
His had like studs on it, I think.
Prongs, like
Yeah.
a couple prongs in a cork or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think they were actually be able to make it cheaper. I can't remember.
I didn't know that, but yeah.
Well, some of these things I'm remembering like really sharply, and some of them like, is that really true? I'm not sure. But so they lit the entire thing, probably with less energy and danger. But so after that, he was able to get them to fund and use AC to light. Was it Buffalo, New York? I can't remember.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know.
The whole surrounding region, but it's right there by like Niagara Falls and stuff. Anyway, so they put in some hydroelectric dams, and he like had people build the dynamos, the generators, and turbines and whatnot, and it like lit up a much bigger area with so much less stuff. We were talking about the wire size.
Right.
That's got to be astronomically different.
Well, that's probably why he was able to underbid
Right.
Edison
'Cause-
or whoever else.
Yeah, it probably cost 10 times as much or more to do DC because of, like we said, the power stations, the thick wires, and I don't know. Edison was a smart guy. I'm not gonna say that like he wasn't. But,
Yeah. But he seems, from what I've read and stuff, he seems like kind of a bully. Even though he was
Yeah.
a smart guy, he seems like kind of a douchebag.
Well, and he kind of had a brute force approach to his inventions, and all those things. Like what's the story with the light bulb? First of all, the thing you need to know is that he did not invent the light bulb.
Edison?
Like lots of people
didn't.
were working. Lots of people were working on a light bulb, but like their the filaments kept on like burning out. So it'd be like, pfft, well, that's not gonna work. Or it'd be like glowing and it would go out. Okay, so Edison just figured out the right filament and like the right gas to put in it. So you've got some like you're basically isolating it from oxygen, so it can't just burn, right? So I don't remember what kind of gas it was. It would make sense to me to use something like nitrogen or I don't know. I don't know if they could even use argon back then, but something unreactive to put in there to prevent it from burning up. And I can't remember. It was probably tungsten because we were talking about tungsten lights. I'm just guessing that was the filament. I'm not sure. Maybe it was carbon. I don't know.
I think aren't modern incandescent light bulbs, even though they're kind of on the way out, isn't it just a vacuum?
Yeah.
And so there's no gas.
Yes.
And then I don't know what the filament's
Okay,
made
so
out of.
I might have been completely wrong with that, but you could probably do it with unreactive gas, but it was probably just a vacuum,
Sure.
like our modern light bulbs. I'm just not sure how they would do that back then, but they did a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, it's like this is kind of a side tangent thing, but I took a hike to a crashed World War II plane not too long ago, and it's 1940s technology, but it seems like way newer than that. It seems like
Aliens.
60s or 70s technology, but in
Right.
the 40s, because
Yeah.
like the entire plane was aluminum. Everything is like very precise. There was things on it that, it's a really cool plane wreck. You should take a hike there sometime. I'll take you there sometime.
That was probably just because how slow technology progressed, but I think a lot of people would say, well, conspiracy theorists. I didn't listen to that episode. I'm sorry.
You should listen to that
But
one. man.
like, aliens gave us this technology. That's why there's a leap in technology. But I'm not saying that. But some people do say that. But it was probably just like
Well,
I mean, we had a leap in technology, and then we had a slow part, and then a leap in technology.
Yeah. Well, I tend to think that we just, we think, oh man, the 1940s, that was so long ago, and they,
So maybe it's our perception. I don't know.
yeah, maybe it's just like, oh man, what they had back then was crap, but it actually wasn't necessarily that bad. I mean, definitely not to today's tolerances and standards, but
I would love to fly one of those fighter planes.
oh yeah,
light bulbs, if you think about it, were very key role in America and everything. If you think about cartoons, when you had a good idea, a light bulb would show up.
yeah.
Like, for some reason, they really capitalized on the light bulb thing, because almost everyone, I think there's an icon on computers that's a light bulb. Like,
For certain things, yeah.
I think it's on Mac.
Yeah.
That's
But,
why it didn't sound familiar.
But is there one for today? For like this day and age, like
A
an
light
icon like that's so widely used.
I don't think so.
The diskette image for saving.
Huh.
People
Yeah,
don't
right,
like kids nowadays. They have never used a floppy disk or a diskette, and they have no idea what that is. They just think it's a save button.
Well, like in photography, since I'm a photographer,
Oh.
if you open up Adobe Photoshop Lightroom, that was almost my Donald Trump voice.
gonna be huge.
There is loop view, and like people are like, why is it called loop view? Like that doesn't make any sense. But like it's like if you had like a strip of negatives and you have this little magnifying glass that you put your eye on, you can like go through the photos.
It's called a loop.
That's how it goes. It's like the strip that you're going through, and nobody knows that. And Lightroom, it's kind of the opposite of darkroom, right? Because we're going digital here. And there's a whole bunch of things like dodge and burn in Photoshop. That's like if you watch the Ansel Adams documentary, which I totally don't expect you guys to have seen that. You know what Ansel Adams is?
No.
He's like this really well-known photographer. I think he was actually hired by the government. I can't remember. Anyway, but he is like one of the big early landscape photographers. He would shoot on this big large format camera. Like that's how big the negatives were.
Really?
And when he would do this, people are like, when people that shoot film, they're like film purists. They'll be like, I get it all right in camera. I don't need to edit it or something like that. It's just bollocks. But I like British terminology. Okay, so he will have like his negatives and a light bulb, like a projector. So it projects the negative onto like photographic paper, and he will have this little round thing, and he'll be going along like this as it's exposing on the photo paper to make the sky darker, or to like to lighten things or darken things.
Really?
Yeah, and speaking of old timey Photoshop, they could do things crazy back in the day. There was actually this like Civil War picture of Ulysses S. Grant on a horse with a certain background and things. It was like the first composite like ever found. Like Ulysses S. Grant is on a horse and he's in a place where he actually wasn't. I think like things were like I think he was actually composited onto that. Like you just have to like cut it really carefully.
So like the first Photoshop.
Yeah.
Before Photoshop was invented.
So I mean, even Ansel Adams is really well known, but like he would like darken and lighten different parts of his image.
Crazy. So what you're saying is functions of what would happen in a dark room is what makes the tools in Photoshop.
Tools in Photoshop.
Where they get the names for the tools.
Lots of it. Yeah.
Is actual functions or things that you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like recolor, you can recolor images in Photoshop, and people used to do that like all the time. It was, they would like
just with like
paint
ink?
black and white photo, like with different like pigments and whatnot. To
that was a big deal though, because there
Yeah.
was no color pictures, and so you'd pay someone to do that. Yeah, I remember seeing some on my grandma's wall.
Yeah,
They were
it's
like
the colors were
over
kind of weird.
over accentuated cheeks. They were really
like pink.
yeah
Yeah.
with super white around it.
Yeah.
Yep. Baby pictures especially.
So that was another wild tangent that we just went on. But all that to say that what was that all to say? that kind of technology as it progresses, we kind of lose touch with it and don't know what it all means, like where the terminology comes from.
Sure. Or even like we don't give credit to previous generations.
Right. Yeah.
Like I mean, going all the way back to ancient Egypt, how did they build those pyramids with the, quote unquote, copper
don't
tools?
Get me started.
And
Don't get me started.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's go down that road.
You want to go to? But
so-
we're talking about
That's fine.
AC versus DC.
Yeah, so
totally
I
cool.
can
Okay,
tell I can
okay.
tell you about the Great
Let's
Pyramid.
juice it up a little bit.
Do you
All
know
right.
about the Great Pyramid?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know all about? Do you know Graham Hancock?
The what?
Yes.
Yes, he's awesome. Okay, so not just him,
He's
but a lot of
super
different people.
knowledgeable.
Okay, so the Great Pyramid is so precisely not only aligned into certain like degrees on the Earth, but like
It mirrors
It's-
Orion's belt, right?
yeah, I think so. I can't remember what it aligns with at a certain year, but the precision of those lines on the edges, like they built them to such precision that we aren't even doing that, like with lasers
Right.
and stuff. Like things will be off alignment wise and whatever you want to say this wise.
I think that's because we're lazy.
Well, I mean, it would cost too much to give that much attention to
Oh,
it,
that's true.
probably, right? But like, so I think it's South America where there are these huge rocks put together, like, and they're not straight. I mean, so I think there's some.
Are you talking about Machu Picchu?
I don't think so. I think it's probably Pumapunku, or I'm not making that up.
No,
or,
I know
or
what
like
you're talking
one
about.
of those other ancient sites I can't remember the name of. But like the back then, like we don't even know how they cut the stones half the time, right? Sometimes they had these techniques of like chipping the rocks out and everything, but like how do you get them to such precision that they fit together in such a way you can't even put in a business card like thousands of years later? You can't even put it in any part of it because it fits together so well. Can you imagine a stone that's like, let's say it's 100 tons or something, or even 10 tons, even 1 ton? Can you imagine like lifting it up and being like, oh, it's not quite right, and it's, chipping something? No, I don't think they did it that way.
So how do we know that the Egyptians made them?
Okay, the Great Pyramid,
Yeah, and that they weren't there when the Egyptians got there.
right?
Well-
That's a good question.
It's kind of interesting. The Great Pyramids, traditionally you're taught like in school and stuff that they are tombs for the pharaohs and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's, in my opinion anyway, that's total BS. There's never been
Oh,
a
yeah.
body found in a pyramid. There's,
Especially the
real?
Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid.
For
doesn't-
real.
I'm a product of what you're describing right now. I was raised to think that.
Oh, me and
and
Brad
that's
are full
why
of those mind-blowing things.
Yeah.
you heard my reaction right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
and there are no hieroglyphs inside
Mhm.
the pyramids.
It was
It's-
the Great Pyramid.
The Great Pyramid.
The
yes.
Great Pyramid. Yeah, I think there might be hieroglyphs inside other pyramids. Would I be right? Because I think
I don't know.
Didn't they find at least a body in one of the pyramids?
I don't think so.
Okay, all I know is that the Great Pyramid is different from a lot of the other pyramids. It's older and yet has better precision. So I mean, this actually is a pattern in some ancient things. So look up. You're looking at me doubtfully.
No, I'm
okay.
My mind is still blown about that. What you said about no hieroglyphs found inside, no
Yeah, it is
mummies found
crazy.
inside.
Some of the angles at which the passageways and stuff go, it's just like incredible like workmanship and precision.
Oh yeah.
Craftsmanship.
So
I'm experiencing cognitive dissonance right now. That's the look on my face.
Well, yeah, it's crazy because you're taught all this stuff when you're a kid. Oh, they were built for the pharaohs and they're tombs for the pharaohs and stuff, but there's never been a body found in them. And all the tombs that they found the pharaohs in have been in the what it's called, like the Valley of the Kings or something.
sounds right.
Yeah, and there's hieroglyphs everywhere telling about their lives and all this stuff, and there's not any of that in the pyramids. And I really like, one of my guilty pleasures is watching Ancient Aliens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to say, like, I watched all of it too, but I don't believe in ancient aliens necessarily.
Right.
I just loved watching because they talked about some mysterious thing.
Right. They talk about things that you never learn about before, and they bring up certain points where you're like, oh, yeah, you know what? That's a good point.
Mhm.
But then the punchline is because
Aliens.
aliens.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Aliens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if they covered Göbekli Tepe, but that's what I was talking about, this ancient site in Turkey. So this is like the oldest thing. Sorry, I don't have pictures for you. This is like one of the oldest sites ever found. And yet...
Like oldest sites on the earth?
It was well, like, this is way older than Stonehenge. And it has the reason it was preserved is because people buried it for some reason, and it's way bigger than Stonehenge. So it was built I don't remember. I don't know. I'm just gonna guess 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. Maybe it says here somewhere. But it's super old. And the thing I was talking about with the older things being with more precision, built better. That's this weird thing. Göbekli Tepe, the oldest rings. So there's these different portions of it, and the oldest ones are built with better precision. And as the time goes on, they get it's they forgot how to make it right, and they just gets worse and worse.
Okay, so I have a question. Very
big tangent.
So these questions that we have, we wonder about how the pyramids were done, who made them, did the Egyptians make them, how did they make them? All these things that we're all curious about that are conspiracy theories, do you think that anybody knows the answers to these? Do you think that when you're sworn in as a president, you get sat down and this is the truth, and you read it, or someone tells you
I think no.
I think there is a certain amount that they tell the president,
no,
important
let's not get
things to
caught
the
up on the president.
You just mean
what you
somebody
said
alive today.
when you're sworn in as president.
Yeah.
Right? I think
as
that
an
they
example.
just tell them the relevant things that they're going to run into. But if there's this whole body of things that may be known that they could just not tell him, because why are you going to tell somebody that's going to be there for 4 or 8 years?
Okay, yeah, let's not get hung up on the president thing. So what I'm saying is if the truth is out there about how the pyramids were built, do you think somebody knows?
Well,
do you think there's a book? Do you think the Illuminati or the Rockefeller family or the Rothschild is what I meant actually? Do you think that they have that book?
Well, so I think
and they're protecting it.
I think the problem is there's ancient writings, right? There's the Bahubali from India, and there's Bible.
Ooh, and
or no, but not Bahubali. That's a freaking Indian action movie. Sorry. It's Mahabharata.
Yeah, Mahabharata.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's
yeah.
that.
We're on the same page.
And there's and there's the Bible, and there's a couple other writings
the Lost Ark.
Right, there's certain things
Indiana
in those
Jones.
writings.
What if the Rothschilds have it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, there's certain things in those ancient writings that people just discount as myth, or as these people didn't,
the Nephilim, or the
right,
when B'nai Elohim come into play and they start talking. Have you heard of the Book of Enoch?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
So that was actually really popular in the time of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. But it was
Around that
not.
time.
It ended up not being canon as far as the Bible's
Well,
concerned.
it's so different because there's so many weird things in it.
Right.
Like the Watchers. Who are the Watchers?
Right.
Did you know that in the Bible, when they're talking about angels, they use it's the Hebrew B'nai Elohim. It's the sons of God or something like that.
Yeah.
And so when they talk about in Genesis, they talk about the B'nai Elohim coming down to earth and procreating with humans, and then people are it's not real angel. They're just, I don't know what they're talking about, and discounting it. But the Hebrew that's used, that's what it means.
It's very literal.
Then they and their offspring are these monstrous things called the Nephilim, and we that's as far as my knowledge goes. But it's just some weird stuff, and people have a lot of conspiracy theories about that.
So where have you seen Graham Hancock?
Okay, Graham Hancock. I probably discovered him.
Have you read his books or seen him on podcasts?
I have a couple of his books.
Do you? Okay.
On audio.
Because he talks about Missoula floods, right?
Yeah, in his latest book.
And he also talks about, isn't he the gentleman that believes humankind kind of evolved because of mushrooms?
Maybe. Yeah, I think he probably
that's the same
thinks
guy.
that might have been a catalyst for change tens of thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with what he's talking about in that latest book is that the reason we don't have much past a certain year is that's when our ice age and flooding happened and all that stuff. So the Great Flood, he believes that exists at least in a regional fashion, even though it happened Okay, no, I think he believes it happened globally because he's finding like all over the world like myths and things from.
Do you agree with him and what he says?
Not necessarily everything, but I think he has some really interesting ideas about certain things.
Okay, because
Definitely.
for me living in the Pacific Northwest, going up that mountain just right over there, it's called something. You can see the rolling hills, and you can see like the Columbia River's right there in the gorge, and you see it everywhere. What he's talking about, like water taking ground away and water moving ground around,
and it likes to cut a path.
Exactly. Because I grew up around all the rivers and stuff like that, and you see like the beautiful like painted hills or whatever, and I believe him. Mostly because I can see it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
Because I see what sand looks like when the tide leaves. It's wavy. And then I could look out and see these rolling hills. And that's exactly like the same thing.
So there's a very interesting documentary on Netflix that has a religious overtone. It is, but you can, depending on what you believe, you can take that no. You can take that with a grain of salt, but it
you
has
have to take the one I'm talking about with a big grain of salt. But
right. It's a very interesting idea, and it's called Genesis, or is Genesis history or Genesis as history or something like that. And it
I might have watched it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It talks about how the Grand Canyon, how traditionally, we're taught that each one of these layers is millions of years,
and it took millions, a lot of time just to cut that out really slowly.
Right, but then they point to like Mount St. Helens and how there's similar types of sedimentary layers that were formed in just a couple of weeks there. So maybe the Grand Canyon was formed in a couple of weeks or a few months or just a few years.
Yeah, if there was a global or huge regional flood, it wouldn't take anywhere near as long if it was like cutting through the Grand Canyon.
Right.
That's a direct path.
Yeah. I mean, if I don't know my topography very well around there, but I'm just guessing. So.
Well, they say that most of the dirt that we're on right now is from Canada. It's like
like blew in and stuff,
or came down with the water.
Or with the glacier and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
And like the joke is that Canada's gonna be like, "Hey, give it back."
Yeah, come and get it, Canada. A.
And you can keep your Canadian bacon.
I like Canadian bacon.
Yeah, real bacon's
words.
so much better. Yeah.
And arguably they have better beer, light beer.
Probably
light beer.
Yeah.
Canadians?
Since
The weed's legal there now.
Really?
Yeah, Canada.
Good for them.
So everybody's even more friendlier.
I think what I said was wrong. I think that they passed it and it comes into effect in a couple of months, like the laws in America do.
Okay.
But they voted to legalize it.
Gotcha.
All right. So they're like, oh yeah, America's pretty great. We should,
Don't let them one up us.
Yeah, we gotta get the weed legal.
Most of the time,
We don't want to be found a hoser.
when you buy like weed and seeds, it comes from Canada. Like, I don't understand why they're late to the train. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Maybe they make more money off of the illegal black market part of it than.
I feel like Canada is just a very passive United States. They're like,
like we're all high-strung Canadians.
Yeah. I mean, I guess except for French Canada, they're
Yeah,
they're kind of
say,
douchebags.
They think they're French.
Yeah. Well, no, okay, what's crazy is they have laws on, like, if you have a business and you have a sign, your French has to be so much bigger than your
Canadian bacon.
English.
Did you see that movie?
No.
With John Candy? Okay.
You like that guy.
So they I don't remember the story. I'm really sorry if I misrepresent this, but so in one part of the movie, just to talk about the niceness of Canada, they're like running through a crowd, like plowing people over, and the Canadians are all like, I'm sorry, my fault," and they're just like plowing through. Anyway, that's beside the point. Anyway, so at one point in the movie, they're driving this van. I don't remember how they acquired it, but it had a bunch of graffiti on it, where it was like profanity and stuff. And the policeman pulls them over, and they're like, "Crap, okay." But the policeman just tells them, "You got to write it in French too." And then lets them go after they put it in English or French or whatever. Yeah,
That's
awesome.
funny.
That's the kind of humor that's like in that Future Man show.
Yeah.
It's not very obvious, and you kind of have to be paying attention.
Subtle humor.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
So where were we? We were talking about Tesla at one point, and I think that was like yesterday.
You know what? I think we need to have you on for another episode just to talk about ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
Are you down with
yeah,
that?
that's cool.
I
All
think
right,
we
all right.
should definitely talk more about having him on later. Definitely. I want to
Definitely.
have conversations about it.
Yeah.
Definitely. We're about out of time
Yeah.
at this point.
There's
so
some cool stuff in Turkey. No, this is in Turkey. There's some other cool stuff in Turkey. Holy cow.
yeah,
I
we
want to go
should,
to Turkey.
We should watch some episodes of Ancient Aliens
So,
and then
I'm gonna
have another episode.
lead us out.
All right.
So,
All right. You have a quote for us?
I don't. No, but I'm just gonna say our Patreon information will be in the description. Our fine guests, all sorts of information that you need on him will be in our description.
Show notes.
His Instagram and all that good stuff. But anyways, thank you for listening.
Wait, I have a quote.
Oh, okay.
All right. If at first you don't succeed, keep sucking till you do succeed.
I have a quote.
Yeah.
Oh
go for it.
We have been recruited. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zor and the Kodan Armada.
Okay, if you get where that quote came from,
You
then
get $5.
well, I don't know about
Monopoly money.
that.
'Cause
Five
I
Monopoly
don't have
money.
that much money.
Okay, we'll
Somebody
send you
can
five
Google it anyway.
Monopoly money, which will cost us 43 cents
Nice.
to mail.
Yeah, I got a printer.
Okay, you got a printer.
Boom.
Boom.